Welcome to another episode of the One-on-One podcast. My name is Josh. We decided before this episode that I no longer need to tell you guys my last name because after 65 episodes, I hope you know it by now.
Yes.
I am joined by Kathy. You should also know her last name, and Ryan as well. I'm going to do something a little bit different on this beginning episode. I'm going to ask the two of you a little pop quiz question, and then we'll also ask our guest the same question because I saw a video on Instagram a couple days ago with Ryan Gosling on some late night TV show, and they asked him the same question, and I thought his response was fantastic. So, Kathy and Ryan, what do you think is the best sandwich in the world?
Peanut butter and jelly.
Ooh, that's a good one.
Classic. Classic. Oh, no.
And Ryan, Kathy, I don't know if you know this about me. Ryan knows a sandwich might be my favorite meal on this planet. So I feel like I am kind of an expert on this in my own right.
Oh man, you would think Josh, you know me, you would think I'd go for something like meaty, but I think for me it's a really good grilled cheese.
Oh, that's a good one too. And Kathy, you said PB&J?
Yeah.
So
grape jelly.
For
Let's
me,
be clear.
I love that. For me, mine is a classic club sandwich, which I know is boring, but I want to tell you guys before we introduce our guest and ask her the same question. I thought Ryan Gosling's response was really good. He said an ice cream sandwich. And I liked that. I didn't think about that one.
Fair point.
And
I
so,
wouldn't have thought about that either.
So I'm going to bring in our guest now, and we're going to start with this, huge question that I'm asking. But Valerie Garcia is our guest, and she's a speaker and author, and we are so fortunate to have her on this episode. So Valerie, before we get into your career, what do you think is the best sandwich in the world?
Well, I'm listening to those answers, and peanut butter and jelly and a grilled cheese and even a club. Those are all good answers. But I would have to go with the sandwich you make the day after Thanksgiving with all the leftovers.
That's nice. I like that.
Oh, yeah. Do you know what I did this year? I took dressing and made my sandwich, Valerie, with dressing and turkey and cranberry sauce. And then I put it in the waffle iron.
Oh, my.
Oh, yeah.
Kathy.
Yeah. That's where it's at.
We're talking spank me good. I can't say that on here, can I? I'm sorry.
Well, Valerie, thank you for joining us. I would say the majority of the time when we have guests on this podcast, they're from our network. And so it's so nice to have someone from outside the Realty One Group network get a, little bit of perspective from people who have not drank the Kool-Aid. So thank you for joining us.
Oh, thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Kathy, I know you two have a little bit of a history together, don't you?
We do. We go way back. I was saying before we started the podcast, she doesn't age. I don't know, Valerie, what's up with that, but I need some of that, just so you know.
Yeah, I don't have any secret ingredients there. Just really good genes, I think.
So Valerie, I want to jump right into it because I actually have your website open right here on my lap, and I want to learn your story. All the ins and outs of Valerie, but I want to start with, because Ryan and I were talking about this, you have such an awesome website. And that's something, we're currently rebuilding realty1group.com. And so we're looking at thousands of different websites for inspiration and the user experience on this, the content, the photography, everything is fantastic. And so even before I got on this podcast and I was like researching you, I was like, okay, this is going to be a good episode because she knows how to put a website together.
Oh, thanks. I actually just relaunched that recently because I had a very DIY website for many years because it was just one of those things I never got around to. But recently I put some effort into it, and it's a more difficult thing than you would think.
Totally.
You think, oh, it's just a website. I'm just going to throw some information on there, but it takes a little bit of work. So I feel you.
Yep. All right. So let's get into it. Tell us 20, 30 seconds. Give us your story.
Gosh, I've been in real estate 26 years. It's been a while. Started answering phones, fell in love with the admin side of the business, went into office management, traveled around the world, worked in Australia for 4 years, became the director of education for Remax, traveled all over the world for them. And then 7 years ago, went on my own. So had some great mix of corporate brand experience and some entrepreneurial experience, but almost exclusively real estate my entire career.
That's awesome. And so now, since you've been on your own, how have you kind of navigated that ship? You're your own boss now. You are now taking on, different clients. You're working with so many different people. How have you found that as opposed to working for, big box brand like Remax?
I really enjoy working for myself. I remember the day that I left corporate life for the last time, and somebody said to me, "You'll never go back." And I thought, but it's true. There are so many things about, working for yourself that are amazing. But really, the core of what I do is just exactly what our real estate agents do. I work a database. I talk to my people. I prospect. I have conversations every single day. I wake up every day unemployed and go to work, So it's no different in this role than it is for probably most of your listeners.
So what was the moment that you realized, okay, I need to share my story. I need to help others by coaching them and helping them learn what I have learned over the last 20 years in real estate?
Yeah, great question. Kind of a strange answer. I was getting on stages and going to events and speaking, 50 times a year and smiling. And I was struggling really deeply with depression to the point of being nearly suicidal. And I had a colleague that asked me to go to lunch one day and said, "Hey, she said, hey, my life is a mess. And, I look at you and you look like you've got it all figured out. And I want to know what your secret is." And that was the day that I realized, like, if I was actually going to help anybody, I needed to start showing up in the world truthfully. And I needed to start telling a truthier story. And that was really the beginning for me of moving away from corporate education toward more of the keynote speaking and the storytelling. And I really wanted to help people be able to say, everything's not perfect.
Yeah.
And that's okay. And I'm still going to show up and I'm still going to serve my clients. But I'm not going to be shoving it all in a box and pretending everything's okay.
Go ahead, Kathy.
I was just going to say, thank you for saying that. I think in these times and in this industry, I just applaud you being so vulnerable. Kuba talks about that a lot, about vulnerability and how important it is. So thank you for showing up for us, because I'm certain a lot of our listeners are going through a lot of shit, just to be honest. Mm-hmm. And for you to be so transparent and so honest, just thank you.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think everything changed for me when I made that decision. People would come up to me and say, like you said, thank you, or thank goodness I can finally be honest, or it's so nice to have a conversation about the real stuff. And I just realized, like, especially in our industry, we applaud the shiny so much, and everybody has to act and look shiny. But I think, we serve people every day that are not shiny, that they're going through the biggest upheaval of their lives, moving all their stuff, right? And I don't think we all need to be shiny all the time.
I want to, sorry, go ahead, Kathy.
Well, I was just going to ask a question. What I think is so important is to show up truthfully and not as a victim.
Yes.
Right? So what is the difference there as far as mindset? Because I think that is so critical for listeners to understand, that transparency and truthfulness is so important, yet showing up as a victim and is different. So tell us a little bit about getting your arms around that.
Yeah, it's a great question. Every time I talk about storytelling, or I talk about, really living your story in terms of your marketing or with your clients, the first thing everybody thinks is, oh, you just have to kind of like vomit your pain all over. You have to be vulnerable to the point of just, oversharing. And I think that's a mistake that a lot of us make. I think that we can be honest and real about our stuff without oversharing. One of the things I learned super early on when it comes to public speaking is Chris Anderson, who invented TED Talks, gave the best advice ever. He said, you should be giving your audience a gift, not a burden. And so if you are giving somebody something that is, they're going to have to carry away, like if you're giving them your pain and your struggles and they have to carry it away and feel like they have to solve it, you're giving them a burden. But when we are helping people, if we can give them a gift of encouragement, also, enlightenment, show up a little bit more real themselves, then they feel like you handed them a gift. And I really loved that, learning from him. And I thought that's where it is that you can say, hey, I feel you, I see you, I understand you, I've been there, without saying, let me also give you my backpack to carry.
There's a quote that you actually have on your site that I want to read that I think really plays into what we're talking about. It's, I once heard a speaker try to shame the audience into change. That day, I decided I wanted to be the one who loves people toward it. I know you, I can see Kathy's eyes light up. Like, isn't that such a good quote, Kathy?
Oh, that's beautiful. Yes.
I mean, that's, that to me, we've now been speaking for the last 15 minutes, but I feel like I've learned so much of who you are as a person, as a speaker, and just from that quote alone. We want, can I just say this right now? We want to hire her for our next event.
I was thinking that. Yeah, totally.
Oh, I love that. Yeah. I see a lot of people that get on stage and say, like, you should this and shame on you for that. And if you don't, if you're not making X dollars or closing X transactions a year, like, you're not trying. And I just, I feel like the very first lesson I ever learned answering phones, I was 19 years old working at a real estate office. And I remember somebody came in, an agent came in and was super cranky with me, threw the paperwork on my desk and said, file this or whatever. And I remember I went to my broker and I said, what is wrong with these people? They're making these huge checks and they come in super cranky, and like, why? And he said something to me I will never forget. He said, Val, they are scared every day. He said, they're afraid they're going to lose that deal or that client, or it's not going to, that deal, that transaction isn't going to close. And I mean, that day, like, just changed my attitude towards salespeople in general, but real estate agents in particular was just, we all walk around with that fear. We're not enough, or we're not going to do enough. We're not going to close that deal. And when I can come at it from the perspective of empathy, and I get it, we're all scared. I understand. Shame is the last thing that should be on our plates. It should always be, we're in this together, and, we're going to love each other better.
So I'm sure your answer is going to be similar, but so then I guess my question is for the real estate professionals right now in this, very shifting, unforeseen times that we're in, what would be your advice to them who are scared?
Yeah. Well, I think to remember that our clients are as well. Gosh, every buyer right now is just worried they're not going to be able to get what they need or afford what they need. Every seller right now is afraid that it's the wrong time and, they shouldn't be making this move. And every single person that we deal with every day is also scared that this is the wrong decision. And I'll tell them something that my coach said to me recently, which is, people come to us very pain aware. They come to us because they are feeling that pain. Something hurts. Yeah. And we are the professionals that can diagnose that and actually tell them what their problem is and the solution. I think there are a lot of speakers and coaches out there right now that are saying, well, we can just, give them some vitamins or some painkillers. But really, I think it's that middle ground. It's that empathy. It's that, hey, I'm going to listen to you. I'm going to hear what you're going through. And I think we have to be that for each other in this industry right now. It is a very lonely industry. A lot of people working on their own. And I think just remembering everybody is feeling the same thing. Everybody's in the same boat. Our clients, ourselves, our colleagues, the person on the other end of the transaction, everybody.
Yeah. Kathy, I have a question. So to that point, we're in a time that's very difficult for every side, as Valerie said. In those times, couldn't you really, I'm not saying take advantage of it, but aren't you really creating lifelong clients when you are helping them navigate through very, very difficult times? If Ryan and his wife are, currently trying to buy a home and they're working with an agent, and I'm sure that this is not a great time to buy a home. I'm sure that agent Ryan is probably going to use the next time he buys a home. And when his brother goes and buys a home, because that agent helped them through a very difficult time. I guess, does that make sense what I'm asking?
Yes. And I think Valerie exemplifies that hearing is one of the five senses, but listening is an art. And she's truly an artist. And you get that vibe even just in a podcast interview. And I think what you're talking about, Josh, is the key to developing those relationships.
Yeah.
And to tie in and bolt on what Valerie's saying is, be that artist that really listens, and not only with your ears, but listen with your eyes, listen with your heart to find out what is behind the fear, what is behind the excitement, what is behind the emotion. Valerie, I'm really excited for you to meet our network because we have such a different culture. We call it cool plus culture, so it's culture. And our culture is, when I hear you talk about the fear and I hear you talk about the condition of the industry right now, man, it makes my heart burst with pride, Josh and Ryan, that we are a part of the network that we are.
Yeah.
Because I think we do listen. I think we do, as leadership, as a network, we listen to one another and we support one another.
I agree. I completely agree. I mean, even with the NAR settlement and, Kuba and team just really pushing to get that done with. I think that was something that was for our network. I think they are looking towards the future. They realize that we are in I know I keep using the word, but in a shifting time right now, but their sights are set on 6 months from now, 1 year from now, 2 years from now, 5 years from now. And that is, it's really reassuring, cause we have our team meetings every Tuesday, and not all the news is good in this industry. We're not going to sugarcoat it. And so it is, I will say from my perspective, it's very reassuring to work for a brand like this.
But Valerie, with 25 plus years, you've been through this before, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, all kinds of this shift, right? So from recessions to, all kinds of things. I think every time something changes, we're faced with a choice. You can sit in it, you can pitch your tent, you can wait it out, you can deny, or you move forward, And I always say the person who adapts fastest wins. And I think we're definitely in a place right now that is going to prove that. The group, the team, the person, the realtor, the broker that adapts the fastest is going to win throughout this. And there are a lot of people that are going to sit back and cross their arms and say, this isn't happening. I want to go back to basics. I want to think about the way things used to be. I'm going to be in denial. But that's not how we move forward. That's not how we evolve. And, I think it's wise for us to say, what does a year, 2 years, 5 years look like? Because if we're not looking forward, we're not going to move forward.
Yeah. I think, Kathy, we've said this with you and I, and then with previous guests that we've had, the idea of finding opportunity in change. And I think Valerie, you clearly have that mentality, but I think you have to have that just to be successful in this industry because it's constantly changing.
Yeah.
Well, I love what you said, and I want to go back to it because that, a successful realtor literally puts himself out of business every transaction. Our goal is to go out of business, right? And wake up every morning, like you said, Valerie, unemployed. Let me tell you what, it takes backbone. It takes steadfast spirit. It takes a lot to get up and do that every single day. And I just hope our viewers and our listeners embrace the fact that every time there's change, there's opportunity, Josh, just like you said, and you can roll around in it, or you can say, how do I take advantage of this? How do I maximize the opportunity? Because there are a lot of people who are not.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah.
Valerie, I know that we are the last form of communication or Wi-Fi that you're going to be using because I know you're taking a little vacation. So we do not want to keep you, but can you tell our network and listeners where you are heading?
Sure. Yeah. I'm heading to the Galapagos. I'm going to be doing some snorkeling and I don't know, whatever you do in the Galapagos. That's what I'm doing. I have a friend who planned this trip and said, "Do you want to go to the Galapagos?" And I said, "Yes." And she said, "Okay, great. I'll plan everything." So,
So awesome.
just doing one of those. I'm going on a trip that I've put zero planning into. So I'm kind of excited.
I'm
what?
jealous.
It would be, as long as I didn't have to spell it, that would be great.
Yeah, that's
We
a
don't
tough
spell
one.
anything these days. Our phones just fill it in for us.
There you go.
It's
There you
true.
go. I have to tell you, Josh, if I could have a sandwich and I could sit around a campfire with bourbon and have a chat and share, it would be with this lady right here.
I
So
agree.
I don't know about you, but I'm looking forward to what's in the future for us all together.
I completely agree. Thank you so much for joining us, Valerie. We really appreciate it.
Oh, thanks for having me. This was fun.
Yeah, this is a lot of fun. Well, we hope to see you soon.
All right. Let's bring sandwiches.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you. We thank you for joining us today on another episode of One on One, a Realty One Group podcast. We are powered by One.U and ask if you have suggestions, recommendations, or questions, please email learning@realtyonegroup.com. And remember, pay close attention to the details, listen to understand, not respond, and always be a resource, not a sales pitch.